So it's October, but it's a sunny day. I made a video showing how this place looked back in, I don't know, March or April or something. It's a bit different now, but I haven't done it that much. But we'll see. Garden boxes that we brought from our community garden. They're just kind of put in a bit random place here, but I did some experiments growing some stuff here. It doesn't look so beautiful right now, maybe, but it's been cool to do some gardening. Raspberry bushes planted this year. They're a bit falling down, and my structure is not super good, but okay. Here we've realized that there was a shed that burned down, so this is like charcoal and like weird stuff, and maybe I want to build a shed there, and that would be like kind of the first actual building project. Hammock has been there all the time, same place. I've taken naps there like 100 times. But this maple is not in good shape, and it might need to be cut down or like very seriously pruned. Here's like a thing that I made from 2x4s and a plywood thing. I mean, this cover up a hole. Yeah, I've been doing some weird experiments with bricks here to learn about how stubs work. Here's some more like primitive garden terrace kind of thing. It doesn't look like much. This is clover. This is rye, and this is something. I have this toilet. I have these sawhorses with a plywood sheet just balancing on there. This toilet I have been using for storage. It was like stacked with boxes of tools and things here. Now I just have like a leaf blower and trimmer, chainsaw, machete, shovel. Here's like a tarp thing for some shelter. Kind of keeps the rain off of this old workbench. These foundation blocks are still here, and for fun we kind of turned it into a thing where you can climb up there and then ride the slide down there. And our 1-year baby can like climb up here easily. And then he goes here. Then he tries to ride this thing on his own, which he kind of can, but he kind of lands on his face. It's a really fast slide. We managed to take this piece of concrete and like move it down from up here, so it fell down there with some real like primitive Egyptian technology. Here's a bit of a compost pile. It's not very well managed, but it's a compost pile. And these, I really like these. These started flowering in September, and now they just look so beautiful, I think, especially like against the cemetery in the background. They are, before they were flowering, when they were just some kind of vegetation, I didn't plant these, they were just there. And I was gonna just chop everything down, but then I used the plant identification thing and realized they are sunchokes or Jerusalem artichokes, and they are like edible tubers that grow underground. So we're gonna try to harvest some of those. Here's the back. There's the cemetery over there, and this corner still has loads of trash, and I believe that more and more trash is coming here through that hole where for some reason people just think that it's a dumpster. Okay, and here, okay. In the spring, this is where we were hanging out mostly, by this grill. But the slope here, which is now a bit of a terrace gardening thingy, was just a slope and not much grass even was growing there. Here's another little garden, like with these flowers that the bumblebees really like. So this is a berry bush. Forget what they're called in English. So I'm doing some gardening here, and this has like kind of emerged as an interesting center. I recently just like put this table here as a bit of an experiment to see like, oh, actually, because this is like a plateau, and yeah, this feels very different now with this terracing thing and with this tables there. Same sunchokes over here, but they don't look as stunning because they have that bright fencing behind them. But if you look from this angle, it's nice. This slope here is also a bit like contaminated with garbage and old like bricks and stuff. I like having this little path. You can go through here, although there's a lot of nettles. But here is a tree that we planted. Let's see how that goes. And yeah, I like this brick back wall of the neighbor's shed. Okay, and so these are the black locust trees, which are very interesting trees. They have these really serious thorns. They're like really hard, spiky thorns, and they grow super fast. It's a funny thing back here. Back in April or something, I put this concrete pipe thingy there, and this tree has grown there. That tree is like 3 meters tall. So these grow super fast, and it's a whole thing. I have ideas about these because you can't really get rid of them without like extremely serious interventions. And they do like shoot up these things, and it's something to manage, and it's a pretty big part of the land. I've made this little pathway here. You can go through this little forest of black locusts, and it's a bit messy, but this, I believe, is the source of all of these black locusts. I believe there was a big old black locust tree here, and at some point it was cut down, and that then, like, because when it's attacked, it starts sending out these clones through the roots underground. And this is an old stump. It's still like very solid, because that's the thing about the black locust is it doesn't really rot. It doesn't really decompose. I mean, it does, but very slowly. And it's like well known as one of the very, very best timbers for things that shouldn't decompose. So like floor beams for structures. And it's a very interesting tree. And it's extremely hard, this timber. So it's extremely hard. It's like harder than oak. But it grows super fast. And as firewood, it is exceptionally good. Like it burns hot, and supposedly it doesn't even need that much curing to be used as firewood. I tried to trim a bit of the grass here around the border and then some kind of paths there. This is where the house used to be, like the residential house that was here in a bit of a L shape. And so here, like, this is one boundary of the old house, and I think it went like, I don't know, like into here, and then like, I don't know, maybe the L shape goes a bit like this. I'm not totally sure. Suspect that the L shape ends here, and somehow that's why the black locusts kind of end there, but I really don't know. So this was the place of the house, and yeah. Okay, so what am I thinking? Well, I was thinking about this boundary here and the boundary back there. This boundary here, I don't really know how to deal with, because this is the temporary boundary, and I don't really want to build like a brick wall there. And also back there towards the cemetery, I'm also like thinking I want a solid wall there, one that somehow from the graveyard side feels like somehow appropriate, like a stone wall would be definitely appropriate from the graveyard side. You're walking on the graveyard path. It's just a big stone wall there, okay. But yeah, so I've been thinking about these boundaries and walls, and the neighbors on that side had a boundary to the cemetery, which was like concrete blocks, lightweight concrete blocks. And it fell down, like this year, it just fell down. The whole thing just collapsed into their yard. And so they were like, I talked to the guy briefly, and he was like, yeah, gonna have to build a new wall there. And now they have this like corrugated sheet metal wall there, which I guess is effective, but it doesn't really spark joy for me, because it's thin. It doesn't really like respect the cemetery side or something. But like thinking about these walls and thinking about buildings, I started thinking that just building walls, just building border walls seems a bit silly, and that what I would really like to do is build buildings along the boundary. And that doesn't necessarily mean like one big building back here. I think that's how it is kind of in the back over there. No, they don't have buildings right up against the boundary. They have these huge block houses. but they're a bit set back, and they just have some big concrete walls. But so I want to make something back here which is kind of like a wall, but also kind of like a building, or like a row of buildings. So the way I imagine doing it is like you do some kind of foundation that goes across the whole length of that boundary, like a concrete foundation or whatever, and then you can, on that boundary, on that foundation, you can make brick wall or concrete block wall, and some parts of it will just be that wall, but also the foundation will be wider than just to support the wall. The foundation would be like at least a meter wide, or, and I don't know if it's going to be the same width all across, or I'm not sure what to do with the slope. But if you would have a concrete slab foundation across here, which is wide enough to build buildings on, like shed kind of structure, but also greenhouse, because yeah, this is the north side, but it faces south, and it's definitely a nice sunny and a bit sheltered spot, and I think it makes perfect sense for a greenhouse. So I think that would be a decent project, and I just have to understand what is realistic and what makes sense, what to do with the old wall, how to kind of build it around these birches, because I don't want to remove the birches. These, yeah, I can remove these, but they have a nice, yeah, these are box alder, I think box alder or box elder, and they kind of frame the space in a nice way. They like create the center here where like this slope leads up to this little terrace framed by these. They look a bit weird now because I chopped them off, but so I imagine that here is a wider kind of a terrace, and it doesn't necessarily need to be like continuous with the foundation that goes all across. It can be like part of the foundation, like I don't know. Those details I don't really know how to think about, but that's definitely something to like plan in detail and then do. Also, my idea is that having a brick wall back there would be like pretty good for isolating like sounds and stuff, so you don't hear people back there so much. But having a thicker, like thinking about it not just as a wall, but as a, okay, so it's like the brick wall that would be there would actually be the back wall of structures like sheds. You see how this is quite unclear in my mind, and I want to clarify it, and I want to figure out what is a good incremental, reasonable way to do it. And then on the street side boundary, it's kind of the same thing. The local regulations mandate that the primary building of this plot needs to be built with its facade right up against the street, like that house there, and it needs to be like acceptable from a historical neighborhood character perspective. I don't really know how that house fits in because it's this like Greek facade that doesn't really like, I mean this is some kind of Soviet house or whatever, but over there we have these more classic houses with the wood what's it called, the plank facade, and those dormers, and yeah, that's the little spaces with windows that stick out from the roof. That's like classic architecture here, and I like that. But, so yeah, like we have to have a somewhat kind of old style house on this street border, and probably it would be just where it was over there, but not necessarily the same shape. And so, but here I'm also thinking about this thing where, you know, thinking about the house on the boundary there as a